The morning heat shimmered across the valley, dust curling up from the ground like smoke. Jake's boots hit the dirt hard as he walked toward his tractor, jaw tight, eyes locked on the white SUV blocking his driveway. Karen stood in front of it, arms crossed, a smug smile plastered across her face. Her sunglasses reflected Jake's silhouette like a threat. "You're not going anywhere, Jake," she said sharply. "You park that ugly thing in view again, I'll fine you till you choke." Jake climbed into the tractor, calm, silent. The engine growled alive, shaking the earth. He leaned forward and looked her dead in the eye. "Move it, Karen," she laughed. "Oh, you're gonna hit me now. Real smart move, farmer boy. You touch this car, I'll make one call and you'll be in handcuffs before breakfast." Jake revved the engine harder. Gravel jumped beneath the tires. The whole street turned to watch neighbors stepping out, phones already recording. He shouted back over the roar, "Last warning." Karen threw her arms out. "Go ahead. Show them who you really are." And then it happened. Jake slammed the lever forward. The tractor lunged with a deafening roar. Metal clashed. The SUV front lifted off the ground. Karen screamed as the machine's bucket hooked under the bumper and tossed the car like a toy straight into the ditch. The sound echoed through the hills. Karen's sunglasses fell as she stumbled back, face red, screaming, "You maniac, you just attacked me, that's my property." Jake stepped down from the tractor, his voice cold and flat. "Then you better go get it." Tires screeched in the distance. Sirens howled closer. Karen pointed furiously. "You're done, Jake. You're going to jail." He didn't flinch. "Good. I've been waiting to talk to the cops." She blinked, confused. The tractor's engine faded into silence. All that remained was the sound of sirens closing in fast, angry, echoing off the valley walls. Jake stood his ground, dirt swirling around his boots. The crowd murmured. Phones filmed. He looked straight at Karen and said, "This land's mine, always was. You just forgot whose name is on the deed." The cops turned the corner, lights flashing blue and red against the golden morning sun. Karen stepped forward, shouting, "Arrest him. He flipped my car." But Jake didn't move. He raised his hands slightly, a half-smile curling at the edge of his mouth. "Yeah," he said, "and now we're just getting started." Sirens sliced through the morning quiet, bouncing off every porch and window in the valley. The neighbors froze. Phones still pointed toward the wrecked SUV half, buried in the ditch. Dust floated in the air like smoke from a fresh war. Jake didn't move. His hands rested on his belt, fingers grazing the steel buckle his father once wore, the one engraved with Hayes Ranch, 1973. The police cruiser screeched to a stop in front of him. Two officers stepped out, Officer McCall, a young man with nerves of glass, and Sergeant Rivera, a woman with the kind of face that had seen too many lies before breakfast. Karen rushed toward them like a storm, waving her arms, voice cracking. "Officers, thank God you're here. He attacked me. He used that machine. He flipped my car. He threatened me." McCall raised a hand. "Ma'am, step back. We'll handle this." But Karen didn't stop. She jabbed a finger toward Jake, her words tripping over her anger. "He's been harassing the neighborhood for weeks. We told him to move his junk vehicles, he said. He said he'd run me over." Jake chuckled under his breath. Rivera's eyes flicked toward him. "Something funny, sir." He met her gaze calmly. "Just wondering if you take confessions without proof these days." Karen snapped. "You think you can intimidate me? This is HOA property, not your farmyard circus." Jake turned slightly, his voice low and rough. "Lady, this land's been in my blood since before your HOA had a mailbox." McCall moved closer, hand hovering near his holster. "Sir, I'm gonna need you to lower your tone and step back from the tractor." Jake's eyes didn't waver. "You planning to shoot me for standing on my own dirt?" The crowd murmured louder, now whispers, gasps, phones capturing every word. A teenager whispered, "Yo, this is wild." Karen spun around, desperate. "He's dangerous. Arrest him. He rammed my car. Look at it." Rivera stepped forward, scanning the scene, the torn bumper, the twisted hood, the fresh tire marks. She walked around the tractor, fingertips brushing the dented metal. "Looks like a hit," she muttered. Jake folded his arms. "Looks like self-defense against trespassing and harassment." Karen gasped. "Harassment? You tried to kill me, lady." Jake said slowly, "If I wanted to, we wouldn't be talking right now." Gasps spread through the crowd. Rivera turned sharply. "That sounds like a threat." Jake looked her straight in the eyes. No, that's a fact, and facts don't care about drama. McCall moved in closer. Sir, we're gonna need your license, registration, and statement. Jake's lips curled. For what? Driving a tractor on my own land. Rivera raised her chin. For property damage and reckless endangerment. Karen smiled, satisfied, arms crossed. Finally. But then Jake said it quiet, sharp, like the crack of a match before a wildfire. You sure you want to file that report, Sergeant? 'Cause the moment you do, you're stepping into federal land. Rivera blinked. Federal? Jake nodded. That's right. You see that marker post behind you? That's a Bureau of Land Management boundary. This whole section's still registered under the Hayes Ranch Act of '79. My father fought 3 lawsuits to keep it off HOA jurisdiction. You file a local charge here, and it's gonna bounce right back to the county office with your name on it. Karen's mouth fell open. That's not possible. We have full authority over. Jake cut her off. Over the sidewalk, maybe, not my soil. Rivera's radio buzzed. She turned away, muttering into the mic. McCall looked uncertain now, his hand slowly dropping from his holster. Karen's voice cracked. You can't talk to officers like that. Jake smirked. Ma'am, I was an officer for 20 years until I retired out of San Antonio PD. The crowd gasped again. Karen froze mid-step. Rivera turned back, eyes narrowing. You're a former cop. Detective Hayes, Jake said simply. Badge 4127. You can run it if you don't believe me. McCall did fingers fumbling on his tablet. The moment the data loaded, his posture changed. His voice softened. Sergeant, he's telling the truth. The air shifted. The crowd went quiet. Rivera looked between Jake and Karen, then sighed, rubbing her forehead. All right. Everyone stay calm. Nobody's under arrest. Yet. Karen's face flushed red. What do you mean yet? He destroyed my car. Rivera turned on her. Ma'am, you're on private land. If what he says checks out, that car's trespassing. Karen's jaw dropped. This is insane. Jake tilted his head. No, ma'am, this is justice catching up. The air was thick with tension, dust, diesel, and disbelief. Neighbors whispered behind camera phones. The wrecked SUV sat crooked in the ditch, engine still ticking, as if it hadn't realized the fight was already lost. Jake stood tall beside his tractor, arms crossed, calm as a man who'd been through far worse. But Karen wasn't done, not even close. Her voice ripped through the silence. You'll regret this, you hear me. I'll have your land seized by the board. Jake smiled faintly. You can't seize what you don't own. Karen spun toward the police, shaking. He's lying. The HOA owns all access points to this property. He can't even use that driveway without our approval. Before Rivera could answer, a sleek black SUV rolled up behind the patrol cars. The door opened and out stepped a tall, silver-haired man in a navy suit, polished shoes crunching on gravel like he'd never walked on dirt before. The murmurs grew louder. That's him. That's Mr. Caldwell, the HOA president. Caldwell adjusted his tie, his tone slick and cold. Good morning, officers. I understand there's been a disturbance. Karen rushed to him like a drowning woman finding shore. Thank God you're here, Mr. Caldwell. This lunatic destroyed my car, threatened me, and now he's pretending he owns this land. Caldwell turned his gaze toward Jake, slow and deliberate. Mr. Hayes, is it? Jake's jaw flexed. Detective Hayes. Caldwell smirked. Detective retired, I presume. I'm sure you know how the law works. This neighborhood is governed by the Clear Ridge Homeowners Association, and your activities today violate at least 3 of our ordinances. Jake's voice was low and sharp. My activities, operating heavy machinery without a permit, destruction of HOA property, and intimidation of a board member. Jake stepped closer, boots grinding the gravel underfoot. Your board member drove onto my land without consent, screamed in my face, blocked my driveway, and threatened to fine me for using my own tractor. You call that governance? Caldwell's smile tightened. We call that order, something this community values. Rivera watched, arms folded, her patience thinning. Mr. Caldwell, before we talk about HOA rules, we need to clarify something. Is this property under HOA jurisdiction or not? Caldwell adjusted his cufflinks. Of course it is. Section 12 of the community deed, Jake interrupted. Section 12 was struck down in 1999. Hayes Ranch is exempt under the county exemption clause. You can check the records. Caldwell froze for half a beat, then smiled again, but the edge in his eyes gave him away. Ah, yes, that little loophole. You see, that's exactly what we've been working to. Resolve. Jake's eyes hardened. By resolve, you mean steal. Karen gasped. How dare you? Jake turned to her. You dare park on a man's land and call him dangerous? Karen shrieked. You could have killed me. Jake's tone dropped to a deep growl. You parked in front of my tractor while I was working. You thought I'd back down because you had a clipboard and a title. You picked the wrong man. The crowd hummed. Someone muttered, he's got a point. Caldwell turned toward Rivera. Officer, I'd like to press charges for assault and property damage. Rivera didn't flinch. You can file a report, but I can't arrest someone standing on land that might not even fall under your jurisdiction. Karen's voice cracked again. What do you mean might not? McCall glanced at Rivera. Dispatch is checking the records now, ma'am. Jake leaned on his tractor, arms crossed. Take your time. Truth's got patience. Karen was pacing now, near hysterical. He's a menace, a psychopath. Look at him smug, covered in grease, pretending he's above the rules. Jake's voice came slow, calm, dangerous. Rules keep honest folks safe. Tyrants hide behind them. Caldwell snapped. Enough with the theatrics. Officer, if you don't act, I'll escalate this to the district attorney's office. The HOA has influence. Rivera cut in sharply. The law doesn't bend for influence. The tone of her voice silenced everyone. Karen's lips trembled. So what? He just gets away with this. He just flips my car and walks free. Rivera looked at the wrecked SUV, then at Jake. Mr. Hayes, we'll need a formal statement. Jake nodded. Gladly, but you might want to hear something first. Rivera raised an eyebrow. And what's that? Jake pointed toward the edge of the property, where an old trail camera was mounted on a fence post, its lens catching the light. That camera's been recording since sunrise. It'll show exactly who crossed where and who shouted first. Karen froze. Camera. Caldwell's mask slipped for a moment. That won't be necessary. Jake smiled. Oh, I think it will. He pulled his phone from his pocket, tapped the app, and played the footage. The crowd leaned in as voices crackled from the speaker, Karen's shrill tone filling the air. You can't tell me what to do, old man. I'll park wherever I want. Then Jake's steady reply, move your car, ma'am. This isn't HOA land. Then the sound of the tractor revving, Karen screaming insults, throwing something metal. Karen's face turned pale. That's edited. Jake's tone sharpened. Keep talking. There's a second angle, too. Caldwell stepped forward, his voice dripping with false calm. Now, Detective Hayes, let's not make this personal. We can handle this quietly, between neighbors. Jake's eyes locked on him. You mean cover it up? Like the fines you issued for driveways you didn't pave? Like the noise complaints you forged? Like the stolen funds from the maintenance budget? The crowd gasped. Cameras zoomed in. Caldwell's face hardened. Careful what you accuse people of, Mr. Hayes. Jake took a step closer, his voice dropping to a growl. Careful who you try to bury. Some of us know how to dig. Rivera looked between them, sensing the storm breaking loose. All right, everyone calm down. Nobody's going anywhere till we get the facts straight. Karen's breathing was heavy, unsteady. She looked at Caldwell. Do something, don't just stand there. Caldwell whispered sharply, get in your car, Karen. Karen screamed back, it's in the ditch, you idiot. The crowd burst into laughter. Even Rivera couldn't hide a smirk. Jake tilted his hat slightly. Guess gravity's not part of the HOA handbook. The laughter died fast. Karen's face twisted red as the crowd's chuckles turned into whispers, the kind that cut deeper than any words. She snapped. Laugh all you want, none of you know the rules. He's the reason this neighborhood looks like trash. Jake turned slowly, voice calm but laced with fire. Trash, lady, I've lived on this land since before your subdivision existed. Before they paved your streets, I plowed these fields. Before you put up fences, I built this soil with my bare hands. Karen marched toward him, finger stabbing the air. You're a liar. This land was cleared by the HOA years ago. Jake's jaw tightened. Say that again. She shoved his chest. It's our land. A single second of silence hung heavy. Then Rivera's voice snapped through it like a whip. Ma'am, step back. Karen didn't listen. She lunged again, screaming, you don't belong here. Jake stepped sideways, her shove missing, his hand catching her wrist before she fell forward. He didn't squeeze. Just held her steady, eyes locked on hers. That's enough. She screamed even louder. He hit me, he hit me. The crowd erupted, some gasping, some recording, everyone shouting over each other. Rivera's hand went to her taser. Hands up, both of you. Jake raised his hands instantly. I didn't touch her beyond keeping her from face. Blanting. Karen staggered backward dramatically, clutching her arm. I'm filing charges. Assault. Attempted murder. McCall rolled his eyes. Ma'am, he barely touched you. Karen spun toward him. You saw what he did. I saw you charge at him like a bull. McCall muttered. The siren stopped. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't peace, it was the kind of silence that meant something worse was coming. Because from the edge of the street, another car rolled up, matte black, tinted windows, unmarked plates. Rivera turned. That's not county. Caldwell's grin returned. Oh, they're with me. Jake's face darkened. Private security, you brought mercenaries to a property dispute. Caldwell shrugged. We prefer the term compliance officers, HOA protocol. The car doors opened. 2 men in tactical vests stepped out, sunglasses on, sidearms holstered but visible. The crowd started backing away, murmuring. Rivera stepped forward. Put those weapons away. This is a police matter. The taller one smirked. We're here to ensure board safety. Jake muttered, you mean intimidation. Rivera's hand hovered over her taser. One more move and I'll ensure none of you get another paycheck. Karen pointed toward Jake. They're here to make sure he doesn't run. Jake barked a laugh. Run from what? My own front yard. The shorter security guard stepped closer, hand twitching near his holster. Sir, please stand down. Jake took one slow step forward, voice calm as a knife sliding from a sheath. Son, I stood down once. When they bulldozed my father's barn. When they paved over our stream. When they told me this land didn't belong to me anymore. I won't stand down again. Karen yelled, that's it. Arrest him. He's threatening violence. Rivera shouted, nobody's threatening anyone. But the moment broke. The guard made one wrong move, unhooking his holster snap. Jake didn't flinch. He raised his voice just enough to echo off the hills. You pull that, and this town will never forget your name. The guard froze. Rivera stepped between them. Back away, all of you. Karen screamed, he's crazy. Jake pointed to the ground. Crazy enough to defend what's mine. Then he turned to Caldwell, voice dropping low. You think you can buy your way through every lie you've built. But you're standing on stolen soil, and every lie sinks deeper in this dirt. Caldwell's calm cracked. You're finished, Hayes. Jake smiled faintly. You said that once before. Before? Caldwell blinked. What are you talking about? Jake stepped closer. The tractor's shadow cutting across both of them. My father warned you 30 years ago when you tried this the first time. Told you if you ever came back here, this land would spit you out. Caldwell's eyes flickered. Your father was a drunk. Jake's voice thundered. My father built this valley. Even Rivera stepped back at the weight of his tone. The crowd was silent. Only the wind moved through the trees. Jake's voice dropped again. You forget history because you paved over it. But I remember every inch of this place, every nail, every fence post, every lie your kind wrote into your fake documents. You're standing on a ghost, Caldwell, and it's angry. Caldwell's lips pressed tight. He turned sharply. We're done here. Karen shouted, you can't just walk away. He glared at her. Get your car out of the ditch first. Karen stomped, furious, and turned to Jake one last time. You'll pay for this, every last cent. Jake nodded slowly. You're right, I will. In court, he climbed back onto his tractor, turned the key, and the engine rumbled alive again. Rivera shouted over the sound, Mr. Hayes, don't do anything stupid. He looked at her and said, I'm done being stupid. I'm being loud. Then, with one sweep of the bucket, he dug into the edge of the driveway. The dirt flew like thunder, cutting a trench right where the HOA signs stood. They toppled like dominoes. Karen screamed. Caldwell's face turned pale. Jake shouted over the roar, "You want the land? Come and take it." Rivera grabbed her radio. "We need backup at Clear Ridge now, code 10-33, escalating." The sound of engines, shouting, sirens, and pure chaos filled the valley as the dust rose higher. But through it all, Jake's words cut through everything. "This isn't a fight for dirt. This is a fight for truth. And I'm just getting started." The roar of sirens split through the morning air. Blue and red lights danced across the gravel driveway as 3 sheriff cruisers tore through the front gate that Karen had chained shut earlier. Dust billowed high, swirling like smoke from a battlefield. Karen froze. Her hands trembled on her phone. The black man, still gripping the tractor's steering wheel, didn't move an inch. His jaw was tight, his shirt streaked with dirt and grease, his eyes locked on the incoming cops. "Everybody stay right where you are," the first deputy shouted, slamming his cruiser door and pulling out his radio. "Dispatch, we've got a property dispute escalating. Possible assault with machinery." Karen pointed toward the man, her voice shrill and shaking. "He tried to kill me. He destroyed my vehicle." The deputy's eyes darted between the flipped SUV in the ditch and the man's tractor. "Sir," he said, hand on his holster, "turn off the engine and step off slowly." The man finally killed the engine. Silence dropped heavy, except for the soft crackle of gravel under the cop's boots. He raised his hands calmly. "She blocked my driveway. I told her to move. She wouldn't. I warned her twice. I didn't touch her. I moved the damn car. That's all." Karen snapped. "He's lying. He nearly ran me over." The deputy's gaze hardened. "Ma'am, step back. Let us handle this." She didn't listen. She shoved her phone in his face. "I have it on video." The deputy glanced at the screen. It showed her SUV parked sideways across the gravel. Her shouting, and then the tractor pushing it gently backward until gravity took it into the ditch. "Looks to me," the second deputy muttered, "like you blocked him first." Karen's face turned red, her lips quivering. "He doesn't belong here. This isn't his land. This is HOA property." The man's voice cut sharp, low, unshakable. "You sure about that?" He reached slowly into his back pocket, pulled out a folded piece of weathered paper, and held it out. "Because this says otherwise." The deputy took it, unfolding it carefully under the sunlight. It wasn't just any document. It was a deed, signed, sealed, original. "Where'd you get this?" the deputy asked. "From my father," the man said. "This land's been ours since 1963. Every inch of it." Karen's voice cracked, her confidence slipping. "No, that can't be right. Our HOA bought this land from the developer years ago." The man's tone stayed calm, almost cold. "Then your developer made a very expensive mistake." The deputies exchanged glances. One of them spoke quietly into his radio, eyes still scanning the document. "Dispatch, you better send a county assessor out here. We might have a major property conflict." Karen shouted, "He's trespassing. Arrest him." The deputy turned, firm and unamused. "Ma'am, until we confirm ownership, nobody's going anywhere. You're both staying put." But the man's calm stare said everything. He wasn't afraid. He knew something the rest didn't. He'd been waiting for this day. The sirens faded, but the tension didn't. Karen's perfect little HOA world had just collided with the truth, and the crack in her control was starting to widen. He stepped closer, voice steady as stone. "You've been building on the wrong land, lady, and I've got the papers to prove it." Karen's breath hitched. "What? What are you talking about?" The man smirked slightly. "Oh, you'll see soon enough." The camera zooms out. Dust, flashing lights, the flipped SUV glinting in the sun, and his shadow standing tall in the center of it all. The crowd was growing now. Neighbors peeking from porches, phones up, whispers flying through the air like sparks. Every single eye was locked on the man standing tall beside his tractor. Karen stood a few feet away, trembling but defiant. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "You think a piece of old paper means anything? This is a private community. We've been here for years. You can't just show up and claim it all." He walked toward her slowly, boots crunching over gravel. "You built 96 homes on my family's land." Karen scoffed. "That's a lie." One of the deputies looked up from the deed. "This document looks legit, ma'am. County stamp, signatures, even the original notary mark." Her lips parted, the color draining from her face. No, that has to be fake. The man didn't blink. You want proof? I got plenty more. He turned, climbed onto the back of his pickup, and pulled out an old, cracked leather ledger, the kind you only see in history museums. He opened it slowly, dust rising off the pages like smoke. This, he said, flipping through faded yellow pages, was my father's record book, taxes paid, every acre listed, my name written right next to his cause. He knew one day this land would be mine. Karen took a shaky step forward, her tone slipping from confident to desperate. You can't do this. You don't understand what's at stake here. He slammed the ledger shut. Oh, I understand just fine. You built your fancy houses, sold them for millions, and not once did you check who actually owned the dirt under your feet. The crowd murmured. One woman whispered, wait, if he's right, doesn't that mean? Another neighbor finished her sentence, eyes wide. We don't even own our homes. The deputy raised his voice, trying to calm the growing panic. Everyone, please stay back. No one's getting evicted today. We'll verify everything first. But the man's tone cut through the air like thunder. You better verify fast, because every single brick, every single fence, every mailbox you nailed down was built on my bloodline's land. Karen's voice rose, sharp and panicked. This is insane. He's making it up. You don't just show up out of nowhere and claim property like some outlaw. He turned toward her with a slow grin. Lady, I didn't show up out of nowhere. I came back home. A hush fell over the crowd. Even the wind seemed to stop. The sheriff's deputy handed the deed back, eyes narrowing. Where'd you say you been all these years? He looked past the cops, past the SUV, past the crowd, to the mountains stretching beyond the horizon. Military, overseas, then working up north. I didn't even know they were building here till last week. But when I saw the survey lines crossing the creek, I recognized my father's markers. I checked the county records, and guess what? Not one legal transfer filed. Not one. Karen's jaw dropped. That's impossible. The developer, he cut her off, lied, and you believed him. The deputy's radio crackled. Unit 9, this is county records. We confirm the parcel deed 47, through 47, F belongs to the Hayes family. Current registered owner, Marcus Hayes. Karen's head whipped around, her mouth opening in disbelief. The crowd gasped. Phones were recording. The deputy looked at Marcus. Sir, that's you. He nodded slowly. Yes, sir. My father was Daniel Hayes. Karen's scream broke through the silence. This can't be happening. Do you know how many contracts this ruins? How many families? He stepped forward, voice low and deadly calm. Maybe next time, don't build on stolen land. She lunged toward him, finger in his face. You won't get away with this. One of the deputies caught her arm. Ma'am, that's enough. Marcus didn't flinch. Get your lawyers, get your board, bring every piece of paper you've got. Because when I'm done, every one of you will know what it feels like to be robbed. Karen pulled free, her voice trembling now with fury. You think you can scare me, we'll bury you in court. He smiled faintly. You already buried yourself when you poured concrete on my family's land. The camera pans out again, Karen shouting, the cops trying to calm her, the neighbors recording, and Marcus standing tall beside his old tractor. Engine still humming faintly like a beast waiting to roar again. The wind picked up, carrying dust across the driveway, sunlight blazing against the metal of the overturned SUV. Marcus looked down at the dirt under his boots, the same dirt his father once tilled, and whispered to himself, welcome home. By noon, the entire subdivision was on fire with gossip. Cameras rolled. News vans parked along the road. Drone shots buzzed over the rooftops like vultures circling a carcass. Marcus stood by his tractor, sleeves rolled up, jaw tight, watching the chaos unfold. The deputies had cleared the crowd, but the tension still hung thick in the air. Karen wasn't done, not even close. She stood a few feet away, her phone glued to her ear. Her voice trembled between anger and desperation. Get every board member here now. I don't care where they are, tell them to meet at the clubhouse in 30 minutes. He's waving some fake deed around, and the cops are siding with him. Her SUV still lay flipped in the ditch, its wheels spinning slowly in the sun. The deputies started to leave, but Marcus called out, his voice steady. I'm coming to that meeting. Karen turned sharply. You're not invited. He smirked. I don't need an invitation. It's my land. Your clubhouse sits on my soil." She froze for half a second, speechless, then stormed off toward her golf cart, muttering under her breath. The camera follows Marcus as he walks back to his pickup, wipes the dust from his ledger, and slides it carefully into a metal briefcase. The lid snaps shut. As he climbs in, the engine rumbles to life. Gravel crunches under the tires. He drives slow, deliberate, past the shiny houses that lined his land like trespassers in disguise. Children peeked from windows. Homeowners whispered in driveways. Every eye followed that old pickup as it rolled toward the HOA clubhouse like a storm about to hit. Inside the clubhouse, chaos had erupted. 5 HOA board members sat around a long, polished table, voices colliding in panic. "We can't let this get out," one said, slamming his fist. "If the deed's real, we're finished." Another whispered. Karen paced the floor, hair disheveled, phone still clutched tight. "He's bluffing. He has to be bluffing." Then, the doors swung open. Marcus stepped in, silent, carrying that metal briefcase. Every head turned. The room froze. Karen pointed at him. "You don't belong here." He walked straight to the table, laid down the briefcase, and clicked it open. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the still air. Inside were copies of the original deed, tax receipts from decades past, and a set of photos, black and white, showing his father standing right where the clubhouse now stood. "This land," Marcus said, voice low, "was bought fair and square in 1963. Never sold, never transferred. You can look it up yourselves. County has the proof." One of the board members stammered, but the developer. Marcus snapped, "Lied to you, and you bought it. Now you're sitting on a subdivision that doesn't legally exist." Karen's face went pale. "You're bluffing." He slid a paper across the table. "County records request. Just came through. You can call them yourself." A younger board member picked up the phone, dialed trembling fingers. He spoke quietly, then froze, color draining from his face. He looked up. "It's true. Everything he's saying is true." Silence. Karen's voice cracked, barely a whisper. "What do you want?" Marcus looked straight at her. "I want justice. Every inch of my father's land back." She shook her head. "That's impossible. People live here. Kids go to school here. You can't just take it all." He leaned forward, eyes hard. "You took it from me first." The room fell silent again. You could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Karen slammed her hand down. "You think you can win? We'll bury you in lawsuits." Marcus didn't flinch. "You can try, but the law's on my side now. You had your time to talk. Now it's my turn to take back what's mine." He snapped the briefcase shut and turned for the door. As he walked out, one of the board members muttered, "This is going to destroy everything." Karen shouted after him, "You're making a huge mistake." Marcus stopped at the doorway and looked back. The mistake, he said coldly, was thinking no one would ever come home. He stepped outside, sunlight hitting his face. Cameras flashed instantly. Reporters swarmed. "Mr. Hayes, is it true you own the land? Are you planning to evict the residents? Will you sue the HOA?" He didn't say a word, just kept walking toward his truck as the crowd shouted questions, flashes blinding his eyes. He climbed in, slammed the door, and whispered under his breath, "Dad, this is for you." The engine roared, gravel flew, and the screen faded to black. His truck driving toward the hills, toward something bigger, something that would change everything. Because Marcus Hayes wasn't done fighting. He was just getting started. The next morning broke bright and still, too still. The kind of silence that feels heavy, like the air itself was waiting for something to explode. Marcus pulled into his driveway, the tires crunching against gravel that now seemed unfamiliar. His tractor was parked under the oak tree, mud dried along the tires. For the first time in years, he felt grounded, like he was finally standing where he belonged. But peace never lasts long when power's at stake. 3 sheriff cruisers rolled up the road again, lights flashing. Dust followed behind them in long golden clouds. Marcus stepped out of the truck, calm but alert. The lead deputy stepped out, hat low, hand near his belt. "Marcus Hayes?" Marcus nodded. "Yeah, what's this about?" "You're under investigation for property damage and trespassing." The HOA filed charges. Karen stood behind the deputies, arms crossed, smug smile back in place. Her SUV was gone, but her arrogance wasn't. Told you we'd bury you in court, she hissed. Marcus stared at her, then back at the deputies. You're arresting the man who owns the land. Just following orders, sir. We'll sort it out downtown. He took a step forward, jaw tightening. You really want to make this mistake? The deputy sighed. Hands behind your back, please. Marcus didn't resist. The cuffs clicked, cold steel against his wrists. Cameras were already rolling from across the street. Neighbors whispering, filming, posting. Karen leaned closer, voice dripping with venom. You thought you could humiliate me. Now it's your turn. Marcus looked her dead in the eye. Enjoy your victory while it lasts. The police truck rolled down the winding Colorado road, sun reflecting off the windshield. Inside, Marcus sat silent, staring out at the subdivision that sprawled across his family's land. He wasn't angry. He was planning. At the station, they booked him, fingerprinted him, locked him in a holding cell. But Marcus didn't flinch. He sat quietly, waiting. Then footsteps echoed. A man in a tailored gray suit appeared. County records officer. He held a thick folder in his hand. The deputy opened the door and motioned him in. Mr. Hayes, the officer said, we just completed the full audit you requested last week. Karen, who had arrived to observe, froze outside the cell, her face tightened. Marcus stood, and the officer placed the folder on the desk and opened it. Inside were property surveys, signatures, and one shocking document. The developer's contract with the HOA stamped invalid. The deed never transferred. The officer said, your ownership is confirmed. The subdivision was built illegally. You're the rightful landowner. Karen's face turned white. That can't be. That's impossible. The officer ignored her. We've notified the court. They'll contact you by noon tomorrow. Marcus stepped forward, calm, powerful. So I'm free to go. The deputy uncuffed him immediately. Yes, sir, and for what it's worth, I'm sorry about the mix-up. Marcus rubbed his wrists, eyes still on Karen. Don't be sorry, just watch what happens next. Karen's voice trembled. You can't do this. You can't just take everything. He turned, walking past her like she was invisible. I'm not taking anything, he said coldly. I'm taking it back. Outside, the media was waiting. Microphones swarmed him. Mr. Hayes, is it true you now own the entire development? What will happen to the families? Are you suing the HOA? He stopped, eyes blazing under the sun. I'm not here to destroy lives. I'm here to expose lies. He looked directly into one of the cameras. For years, people like her thought power meant ownership. They built fences, gates, and rules on someone else's land. Well, today, those gates just opened. For good. Karen stormed out behind him, screaming, You'll regret this, Marcus. I'll make sure of it. He turned slightly, voice deep and steady. You already made sure of your own downfall. He climbed into his truck, slammed the door, and drove off as the cameras flashed and reporters shouted. The road stretched long and empty ahead. The mountains glowed gold under the morning sun. The sound of the engine grew louder, stronger, like a man reclaiming not just his land, but his destiny. The next day, the courthouse in downtown Denver was packed. Reporters, lawyers, cameras. Everyone wanted a front row seat. Marcus walked in wearing a black suit, calm and composed. Karen sat at the plaintiff's table, surrounded by her attorneys, whispering frantically. The HOA board members were pale, avoiding his gaze. The judge entered. The gavel struck once. Boom. Silence filled the room. Case number 1274. Hayes versus Willow Creek Homeowners Association. Karen shot him a glare. You think you've won already, just wait. Marcus didn't look at her. He was focused, controlled, like a man who'd already seen the ending. The HOA lawyer stood first, pacing confidently. Your Honor, the defendant claims ownership of the subdivision based on outdated documentation. Our client purchased this land through a verified developer 15 years ago. The judge nodded. Mr. Hayes, your response. Marcus rose slowly, every movement deliberate. Your Honor, I'm not here with claims, I'm here with proof. He held up a stack of papers, deeds, tax slips, and the original survey maps. The courtroom leaned forward as he laid them out on the evidence table. Every signature, every transaction, every legal stamp leads back to my father, Daniel Hayes. There was never a transfer of ownership, never a sale, and this, he held up one page, This is the notarized ledger that shows taxes paid through 2023. Karen's lawyer frowned. That's impossible. The HOA. The judge cut him off. Quiet. Let me see that document. He studied the paper for a long moment, then looked at the clerk. Verify this with county records. Karen shifted nervously, whispering to her attorney. Minutes ticked by. The courtroom buzzed with quiet tension. Finally, the clerk returned, holding the paper high. Verified. Authentic. County seal matches. Gasps rippled through the room. Cameras clicked. The judge turned to Karen, expression unreadable. Mrs. Anderson, did your HOA conduct a title search before construction? Karen stuttered. We trusted the developer's documents. We didn't know. Marcus leaned forward. You didn't want to know. Her face flushed red. You ruined everything. She screamed, standing up. The bailiff moved closer. The judge slammed the gavel. Order, one more outburst, and I'll hold you in contempt. Karen dropped back into her seat, shaking with rage. The judge turned to Marcus. Mr. Hayes, the court recognizes your ownership of the property. The HOA and developer will be subject to damages pending further review. The sound of that verdict hit like thunder. Reporters surged toward the aisle. Karen's mouth fell open. No, this can't be happening. Marcus turned to her calmly. It's over, Karen. He gathered his papers, nodded to the judge, and walked out. Outside, the sunlight was blinding. Reporters swarmed him, shouting questions. He paused, looked into one camera, and said simply, justice always finds its way home. Then he walked down the courthouse steps, jacket in hand, leaving the chaos behind him. The courthouse doors slammed behind Marcus as he stepped out into the blinding sunlight. Flashes erupted, microphones shoved toward his face, but he didn't slow down. Behind him, Karen's voice exploded through the marble hall. This isn't over, she screamed. You hear me, Hayes? I'll make you regret this. He stopped halfway down the steps, turned slowly, and looked back. You already lost, he said quietly. Then he walked to his truck. But inside that courthouse, Karen wasn't finished, not even close. Hours later, as the sun dipped low, the quiet community of Willow Creek turned tense again. Karen stood at the center of the cul-de-sac, her hair a mess, her eyes wild. Half the neighborhood had gathered, some in sympathy, others just watching the madness unfold. You all saw what he did, she shouted. He humiliated us. He's taking everything we built. One of the residents murmured, Karen, maybe we should let the lawyers handle it. She spun on him. You think I'm going to sit back while that man tears down our homes? No, we take back control tonight. A truck rolled up the street. Marcus, he stepped out, calm, hands in his jacket pockets. Karen's voice rose like a storm. You don't belong here anymore. You lost your right when you brought the law into our lives. Marcus took a step closer. Karen, the law was already here. You just never respected it. She screamed, you think you're the hero, you're a thief. The crowd gasped. Marcus didn't move. His eyes were sharp, focused, unshaken. I'm the man whose land you built your dreams on, he said, and dreams built on lies don't last long. She lunged toward him, but before she could reach him, red and blue lights flashed again. Police cruisers pulled up, tires screeching. Ma'am, step back. One officer shouted. Karen spun, pointing wildly at Marcus. Arrest him, he's trespassing again. The officer frowned. Ma'am, this is his property. Court verified it this morning. Karen froze, blinking. No, that can't be. Marcus crossed his arms. You called the cops on the landowner again. She shook her head, voice cracking. You can't take everything from me. He looked at her, his voice low and cold. You took it from yourself. Suddenly, Karen broke. She screamed and grabbed a garden rake from the side of a lawn, swinging it wildly at one of the police cruisers. The crowd shouted in panic. Two officers rushed forward. Ma'am, put it down. But she kept swinging, screaming, he ruined everything. He stole my life. Marcus didn't move. He just stood there watching the empire she built crumble in front of her. The officers restrained her, gently but firmly, as she struggled and cried. Let me go. You don't understand. This is my neighborhood. One cop said quietly, not anymore. Karen's sobs echoed across the cul-de-sac as the cuffs clicked around her wrists. Marcus turned away, the weight of years lifting off his shoulders. He walked back toward his truck, the wind brushing through the grass, the mountains glowing faintly in the evening sun. Every step he took sounded like closure. Neighbors watched in silence, some nodded quietly. Others lowered their phones. Marcus paused once more before getting in. He looked back at the homes, his land, then at Karen being led to the squad car. Justice, he murmured, always comes for those who forget where they stand. The door closed. The engine rumbled to life, and as the police lights faded in the distance, the community that once tried to bury him finally knew Marcus Hayes wasn't a trespasser. He was the owner, the rightful one. And no HOA, no power, no Karen could ever take that away again. Morning light crept over Willow Creek like a slow confession. The cul-de-sac was eerily quiet now. No barking orders, no HOA patrols pacing the sidewalks, no Karen, just silence. The kind that makes people whisper even when no one's watching. Marcus's truck sat parked in front of the same house they once tried to take from him. The air smelled like wet asphalt and morning dew. He stood by the mailbox, holding a cup of coffee, watching the neighborhood that had once turned on him now turn inward, ashamed. One by one, doors opened, faces peeked out, some waved awkwardly, others looked away. Mrs. Donnelly from next door walked up slowly, clutching a basket of muffins like a peace offering. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, she said softly. We all thought she knew what she was doing. Marcus gave a faint smile. She did. That's what made her dangerous. A news van rolled by, its satellite dish gleaming. Reporters had been circling all morning, broadcasting Karen's meltdown across every network. Former HOA president arrested in violent outburst after property scandal. The headline ran nonstop. People were finally seeing the truth. Inside his living room, sunlight spilled across files, blueprints, and documents. Marcus picked up an old folder. His father's original land deed. The signature at the bottom was faded but firm. It reminded him why he fought in the first place, for legacy, for respect, for truth. A knock came at the door. Two men stood outside HOA board members, pale and uneasy. Mr. Hayes, one started nervously. We wanted to apologize. Officially, the board has voted to dissolve the HOA entirely, effective immediately. Marcus didn't blink. Took you long enough. The other man swallowed hard. Karen's in custody, the others. Resigned. We realize the community can't move forward until it's rebuilt on honesty. Maybe you'd consider helping. He stared at them for a long moment. Help, after what you all did. The first man nodded, ashamed. We deserve whatever you decide. Marcus sighed, eyes drifting to the houses around him. The same ones that had whispered lies, filmed him, accused him, tried to destroy him. But now they stood quiet, fragile, waiting for direction. Get off my property, he said finally. Their faces dropped. Then Marcus added, come back tomorrow, with everyone. We'll talk about rebuilding. But this time under real leadership. Their relief was visible. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. He nodded. Don't thank me yet. By noon, the neighborhood buzzed again. Reporters packed the sidewalks. Drones hovered overhead. The world wanted a sound bite from the man who exposed one of the most corrupt HOA in the county. Marcus stepped outside, calm, collected, voice steady as iron. I didn't fight for revenge. He told the cameras, I fought for truth, because truth doesn't bend to titles, money, or fear. It stands tall, and when you bury it, it grows roots. The reporters leaned in, hungry. What happens to Willow Creek now? He looked out at the row of identical houses, the manicured lawns, the plastic perfection that once masked injustice. It gets a second chance, he said, but it starts with accountability. Across town, Karen sat in a cold holding cell, her HOA badge on the table beside her. She stared at it for hours, silent, trembling. Her phone buzzed with missed calls from lawyers, board members, even her own son. But she didn't answer. All the control she fought for, the rules she enforced, the power she craved, it had crumbled in one night. She whispered to herself, almost delirious, it was my neighborhood, my rules. A female officer passing by paused and said gently, not anymore, ma'am. Back at Willow Creek, as dusk fell, Marcus stood at the entrance of the community. The sign that once read Willow Creek Estates managed by HOA now hung lopsided, the last letters fading. He walked up, unscrewed the plaque, and let it drop to the ground. The metal clanged like a final chapter closing. A few neighbors clapped quietly. Others just stood, watching him with something new in their eyes. Respect. He turned, voice carrying across the still evening. From now on, this neighborhood belongs to the people who live here. Not to fear, not to titles, not to control. The crowd murmured in agreement. A young boy whispered to his mom, "That's the man who stood up for us, right?" She nodded. "That's him." Later that night, Marcus sat on his porch, listening to the crickets and distant hum of the city. The chaos had ended, but his story, his fight, had just begun. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "Dad, it's done. The land's ours again." The wind rustled through the trees like an answer, and for the first time in years, Willow Creek slept in peace. The courthouse smelled of polished wood and old paper, a place where truth and lies sat across from each other, waiting for a verdict. Karen walked in handcuffed, head held high, but her eyes were wild. The once perfect hair, the pearl necklace, the designer blazer, all out of place now. Her power was gone, yet she still clung to the illusion. Flashes exploded from every direction. Reporters shouted questions. "Mrs. Walker, do you have any remorse? Did you really authorize fake HOA fines? Were you working with property developers?" She didn't answer. She just kept walking. Inside, Marcus sat in the front row, calm, expression unreadable. He didn't come for revenge. He came for closure. The judge entered. The crowd fell silent. Papers shuffled. Microphones clicked on. The prosecutor rose first, voice sharp and deliberate. "Your Honor," the defendant, Karen Walker, used her position as HOA president to exploit, harass, and threaten homeowners. She orchestrated false citations, unauthorized fines, and illegal property seizures, all under the guise of neighborhood order. The defense tried to fight back, claiming misunderstanding, stress, mental exhaustion, but the evidence was too loud. The videos, the documents, the fake fines, it all burned her credibility to ashes. Then came the twist. The prosecutor held up a thick file, and finally, "Your Honor, we present evidence showing that Mrs. Walker's HOA was secretly backed by private developers who wanted the land for commercial use, including the very property owned by Mr. Marcus Hayes." The courtroom erupted. Gasps filled the air. Karen froze, mouth slightly open. No, that's not true," she yelled, but Marcus knew. He'd suspected it for months. The tractor fight, the police calls, the endless fines. It wasn't just control. It was a setup. The judge banged the gavel. "Order." Karen's voice cracked. "They told me to keep him out. They said it was for community progress." Marcus stood, his voice firm. "You destroyed families, Karen. You called cops on children, threatened veterans, fined widows for flowers in their yard. And you did it for money." She looked at him, trembling. "I was trying to protect the neighborhood." He shook his head. "No, you were protecting yourself." The judge leaned forward. "Enough. This court sentences Karen Walker to 5 years for fraud, harassment, and abuse of authority." Silence fell. Karen broke down, sobbing. The sound echoed through the room. Outside the courthouse, cameras swarmed Marcus as he stepped out. "How do you feel now that justice has been served?" He paused, glancing back at the tall marble building behind him. "Justice isn't about winning," he said quietly. "It's about making sure the truth can't be buried again." That night, the neighborhood gathered under the same streetlights where it all began. No shouting, no threats. Just quiet voices planning cleanup, repairs, new beginnings. Children rode bikes again. Laughter replaced sirens. Marcus leaned against his tractor, watching them. The same machine that flipped Karen's SUV now stood still, its engine silent, a symbol of the fight that ended control. He smiled faintly. "Sometimes," he whispered, "you've got to flip more than just a car. You've got to flip the whole system." The wind carried his words through Willow Creek. The lights flickered across calm streets that once burned with chaos. Peace had finally returned. Weeks passed, and the chaos of Willow Creek began to fade. The HOA was dissolved. The courts handed Marcus full control of his 47 acres, and the headlines told his story across the nation. Local man outsmarts corrupt HOA. Tractor showdown leads to landmark legal victory. But beneath the peace, something darker was still moving. One evening, Marcus stood on the edge of his property, staring at the rows of half-built homes. Construction crews had vanished overnight, leaving skeletons of luxury houses behind. Wooden frames, scattered tools, and forgotten dreams. He had a decision to make: tear it all down, or finish what they started. That's when a familiar voice came from behind. "You could sell this whole place, Marcus, retire. Never lift another finger." It was Jake, his old friend and once the only neighbor who'd stood by him when everyone else turned away. Marcus smiled faintly. "I didn't fight all this just to sell it, Jake. This land's been in my family since my grandfather's time. It's staying that way." Jake nodded slowly. "Then maybe we turn it into something good. Housing for veterans, maybe. Farmers, something honest." Marcus liked that. For a moment it felt like hope, but hope has sharp edges. 2 nights later, Marcus drove by the property again and saw something strange. A line of black SUV parked by the fence, flashlights flickering, voices in the dark. He pulled over, stepped out, and his heart sank. Jake was there, talking to a man in a suit. Marcus moved closer, staying low behind a pickup. "Listen," Jake was saying, his tone urgent. "He's stubborn, but everyone's got a price. Once you show the offer, he'll take it." The man replied coldly, "We're not making offers anymore. We're taking it. The paperwork's already in motion." Marcus froze. His chest tightened. Jake, his friend, the one person he trusted. He stepped out from the shadows. "You planning to sell me out, Jake?" Jake turned, startled, face pale under the streetlight. "Marcus." "Wait, it's not what it looks like." Marcus's voice cut sharp. "It's exactly what it looks like." The suited man smirked. "Mr. Hayes, you might own the land, but you can't stop progress. That's what investors are for." Marcus took a step forward. "Progress built on betrayal isn't progress. It's rot." Jake tried to speak, voice trembling. "I just wanted to help," Marcus snapped. "You wanted a cut. Admit it." Silence. The truth hung heavy between them. The man in the suit waved to his team. "Pack it up. We'll be back in court by Monday." Marcus watched them drive away, engines fading into the night. He turned to Jake. "You had my trust. That's worth more than any land or money." Jake dropped his gaze. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." Marcus walked away. It already did. The next morning, Marcus was back at the courthouse again. This time, not for Karen, not for the HOA, but for himself, to defend what was left. The developers had filed a claim, accusing him of fraud, trespass, obstruction, twisting the same lies Karen once used. He looked at the paperwork, then at the judge. "They can't take this from me again, not this time." The judge nodded slowly. "Then you'd better be ready for another fight, Mr. Hayes." Marcus took a deep breath, eyes burning with resolve. "I've been ready my whole life." Outside, the media was already waiting again. Cameras, questions, flashes, but Marcus didn't speak. He just walked straight to his truck, because deep down he knew this wasn't over. The HOA was gone. Karen was gone, but greed never dies. And now it wore a new face. Morning light spilled across Willow Creek, golden and calm, too calm for what was coming. Marcus stood by his truck, coat flapping in the breeze, watching a convoy of bulldozers rumble toward his fields. The developers had returned, this time with permits, fake ones, and Jake was with them, standing by their side. Marcus's blood burned. He climbed onto his tractor, the same one that flipped Karen's SUV months ago. Its engine growled like thunder waking from sleep. The men on the hill froze. One of them shouted, "Don't do anything stupid, Hayes, we've got court orders." Marcus revved the engine louder. Funny. He yelled back, "So do I." He raised a folder in his hand, the original deed, freshly stamped and verified by the county registrar. The very proof they thought they buried. "Get those machines off my property," he warned. "Now." The site manager smirked. "You can't stop progress." Marcus's eyes hardened. "Watch me." He slammed the throttle. The tractor roared forward, dirt flying, engine screaming as he charged across the field. The developers panicked, shouting, waving their arms, scattering to safety. Jake ran toward him, shouting, "Marcus, stop. They'll arrest you again." Marcus didn't slow. Then they better bring an army. The tractor tore through the fence, straight toward the lead bulldozer. Metal shrieked as the machines collided, splintering wood and sparks bursting into the air. The crowd screamed. Dust billowed up, swallowing the scene in chaos. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police cruisers arrived seconds later, tires screeching to a halt. Officers jumped out, shouting commands. Guns lowered but ready. "Step off the vehicle, sir." Marcus raised his hands, calm now, covered in dust and sweat. "I'm done," he said, "but check the papers in my truck." The sheriff, a tall man with a weathered face, walked over, flipping through the documents Marcus had left on the seat. His eyes widened. This is the original deed," he said quietly, "registered 70 years ago, still active." The site manager's voice cracked. "That's impossible. We had new permits." The sheriff turned, eyes like stone. "Then yours are fake. You're trespassing." The officers moved fast, confiscating the bulldozers, ordering the crews to back off. The men who once came to claim the land now stood frozen in disbelief. Marcus walked toward Jake, dust swirling around them. "You knew," he said quietly. "You knew they forged those papers." Jake's voice trembled. "They told me it was just business, that no one would get hurt." Marcus stared at him, disappointment cutting deeper than anger ever could. "You sold loyalty for pocket change." Jake looked down. "I'm sorry." Marcus stepped closer, voice low and final. "Sorry doesn't grow back trust." As the police cuffed the developers and escorted them off the land, the sun began to set, casting long, golden streaks over the broken fences and scattered debris. Reporters arrived again, cameras flashed. One voice shouted, "Marcus, what will you do with the land now that you've won?" He looked out over the acres, his grandfather's soil, the roots of his family legacy, the place where greed came to die. "I'll rebuild," he said simply, but not the way they wanted. He pointed toward the horizon. "This land won't be for luxury. It'll be for people who need a start. Farmers, veterans, families who lost everything. This land will finally mean something again." The crowd went silent. Marcus climbed back onto his tractor, hands steady, eyes locked on the fields. "You can build houses anywhere," he said, starting the engine, "but home belongs to those who fight for it." The tractor rolled forward slowly, sunlight glinting off its frame, dust rising behind like smoke from a battlefield long won. As the last light faded, the sheriff turned to his deputy. "He's one hell of a man." The deputy nodded. "He didn't just win land back, sir. He won respect." That night, under the stars, Marcus parked his tractor by the old barn and looked up at the quiet sky. He whispered to himself, "It's over." But deep down, he knew it wasn't just about land or laws. It was about every person who'd ever been pushed, cornered, and told they didn't belong. Now, the land was his again. The story was his again. And for the first time in years, Willow Creek slept in peace. The end.